TopMedTalk.
Well, hello, I'm Desiree Chappell, and this is TopMedTalk. We are here in Orlando, Florida for Anesthesiology 2019, the annual meeting of the American Society of Anesthesiologists. With over 14,000 delegates, this is the largest meeting and gathering of anesthesiologists and providers in the world. Now, I'm joined by my co-host, editor-in-chief, Monty Mythen. Hello, Monty.
I've always wanted to be a ho-coast.
I know. I don't even know what that means exactly. But it's been a long 3 days. We've been talking a lot.
It's been a great meeting.
It has been absolutely fantastic.
People have been very generous with their time.
Yeah.
As I keep going on about it, we're very excited. It's our first 20,000 download week.
That's right.
So that's quite a milestone.
Yeah.
And we've had some really fantastic guests, but I think we're just about to trump them all.
We are. We're about ready to trump them all. I want to make sure I introduce Henry Howe, one of our team members on TopMedTalk. He's joined us as well. Hi,
Hello,
Henry.
how are we doing?
Good. And Henry, you are a med student over in UK, right?
I am in Bristol in my final year now, and luckily enough, I'm here with you guys in Orlando.
Yeah.
Did you get out at all, Henry? Have you been to see Mickey or?
Well, I've actually seen Mickey in our Airbnb. She floats around every now and again.
That's Minnie.
It is Minnie. It's Minnie. Yeah. We'll talk about that later, Henry. So this is our third year here at ASA, and like we said, we wrapped up yesterday in the exhibit hall, but we had the chance and the opportunity to sit down with a very special guest. It's kind of like our added bonus for the weekend. So this morning we had an opportunity to speak with the 2019 American Society of Anesthesiologists recipient of the Distinguished Service Award and president of the Anesthesia Patient Safety Foundation, Professor Mark Werner. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Hello. Good morning. Awful nice to meet you all.
It's very nice to meet you. Well, first of all, congratulations on your award yesterday. That must feel pretty cool.
Thank you. It's, I think, in some ways, it's what they give to older folks to say, hey, it's time to leave the stage and let the next generation take over. So, but no, I'm really honored to have gotten that. Thank you.
Yeah, well,
very well deserved.
It is. I was just going to say, obviously, you've done a ton of work in this organization throughout the world. So that is amazing. So just kind of jumping right in, can you give us a little bit about your background, where you're from? I know that you're a professor of anesthesia at Mayo, but tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I'm a Mayo anesthesiologist, and I've spent my entire 40 years in the specialty up at Mayo Clinic. Been very fortunate to have some incredible colleagues, including specifically my wife. And we actually have seven.
She's an anesthesiologist
She's
as
an
well.
anesthesiologist also. We have 7 Warners in our department, which I often tell our Board of Governors is more Warners in anesthesiology at Mayo Clinic than there were ever Mayos at Mayo Clinic. So I keep asking them to change the name. But no, I've been very fortunate. So my cousin is one of the most prolific researchers in anesthesia. And he's a member of our department. And then my wife, who's the best anesthesiologist that I know. And then 2 of our sons are Mayo anesthesiologists, and both their wives are Mayo anesthesiologists.
Gosh.
So,
oh, my goodness.
We kind of run it in the family.
Yeah.
But I've been very fortunate to have the opportunity to be involved in a lot of different things in anesthesia. And specifically through the ASA, many opportunities that have led eventually to here at the end of my career being the president of the American Society of Anesthesiologists for a period, and now the Anesthesia Patient Safety Foundation.
Yeah, when was your presidency for the society?
2010 and 2011.
Okay, and was the APSF part of your mission there during that time, or?
Well, patient safety in general has been part of my mission the entire time, and very proud that the ASA makes that an important part of their mission. And so much so that in 1985, when patient safety wasn't emphasized as much, and there was a crisis in patient safety related to perioperative care, the ASA realized that they needed to form some unique foundations that allowed them to be more nimble in responding. And so the Anesthesia Patient Safety was formed as the world's first patient safety foundation. And most all the other world's patient safety foundations have been modeled on the Anesthesia Patient Safety Foundation. And so very proud of it. I've followed it since the very start of my career. It's been one of those, well, in my career, I've followed 2 things throughout my entire career that were remarkable. And one is the improvement in patient safety in surgery. So in 1981, 82, if you had your appendix taken out and you were an otherwise healthy young person, your chance of dying from an error related to anesthesia was about 1 in 10,000. Nowadays, about 1.5 million.
Yeah.
So about a 50-fold improvement
Wow.
in safety related to the anesthesia care. Now, what we've not done is expand that very well to perioperative care. All those things that occur both before, during, and after, and particularly and after surgery. So that's been one of the miracles that I've seen in my career. And we want to extend that because we know people still get harmed during anesthesia care, but particularly they get harmed after anesthesia care. And as we expand what we do to perioperative care, we want to make sure we play a key role in improving patient safety in that entire perioperative continuum. The other is HIV, for example. I took care of the very first patient in Minnesota that had HIV back in 1983. And so I've been able to watch during my career the evolution of that disease, the devastating impact it's had, but the improvements, and now an opportunity to actually eradicate the disease now. And so just as a physician, just to go through that, not just an anesthesiologist, but as a physician, to watch a disease devastate a world, and now we have a chance to eradicate it just in one lifetime. So I've had some really miraculous things I've been able to watch during my career.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So on the perioperative front, some of our colleagues initially pushed back a little bit and said, basically, I see my job as an anesthesia provider, sort of IV in to tube out, or whatever it is, from that quite narrow window. Are you hearing much resistance from colleagues when you're taking this holistic approach?
I think anytime you make a change,
Exactly.
you move their coffee break by 15 minutes, you'll get pushback.
That always. So change the CEO, no one notices. Change the coffee, everyone notices.
That's right. Well, I'm very proud. In 2000, and it was actually October 14th of 2000 in San Francisco, a group of individuals, and I was one of the young bucks that got involved at that point, got together in a room, and I can still distinctly remember the room in the Marriott in downtown San Francisco, where we started talking about how do we do more with anesthesia to protect patients, not just during the surgery, but beyond the surgery. We started that journey, and it was led by some incredibly good people, and I had the opportunity to tag along. And then during my career, I've had opportunities in leadership roles to help push that idea. So the first was you had to first talk to the American Board of Anesthesiology and changing the requirements on what it took to become a board-certified anesthesiologist. And then the cascade starts after that, but then the training programs have to change because they have to produce people that can qualify to be board-certified.
Yep.
So that expanded training and more in ICU care, preoperative medicine, and a variety of other things, and a lot of different training beyond the operating room. Then the ASA started promoting the perioperative surgical home. And that was actually a term coined by Dr. Alex Annenberg, who's done a previous podcast with you, and myself in a taxi cab as we went over to Health and Human Services to speak to the head of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Don Berwick. And Alex wanted perioperative home. I wanted surgical home. We ended up with perioperative surgical home. So anyhow, we pushed this well, and I'm really proud to say an increasing number of departments, whether it's academic departments, private departments, even private practitioners in the specialty, at least in the U.S., but I see it around the world now, are expanding what we do. Now, we were a little late to the game. Europe was way ahead of us and others. But it took some momentum. But I think we now have critical mass, and it's moving quite rapidly now. So folks are doing a lot more things outside the operating room.
It does seem to be global now. We're lucky between our Royal College of Anaesthetists and University College London, they ran a massive open online course, and more than 20,000 people from over 140 countries have taken it now, which, so it's happening.
Yeah, and we're actually still behind some places I'd like to get to. For example, in most European countries now, you become trained and board certified in anesthesia and critical care medicine. We've not done that yet because there are so many opportunities beyond just critical care medicine also. So, but I think we're in a good direction, and we've got folks reaching out, and at every meeting such as this, they're all wondering, what's everybody else doing? They're sharing ideas.
And you said it was 2000 your meeting, was it?
In 2000.
That's about right.
14th.
20 years is usually the tipping point for it's stuck, and if you can hang around long enough, that's usually the inflection point. So well done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But I can tell you, there have been a lot of irate people at me and others that have promoted this idea. But eventually, you outlast them.
Yeah, exactly.
The movers and the shakers are never usually the one. Yeah, they get a lot of flack, but you make a difference.
You try to make a difference.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Mark, I really wanted to talk about the Anesthesia Patient Safety Foundation because I know that's what you said you're kind of moving into this
fun
space.
And part of my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know you gave a brief little background about it, but tell us a little bit more about it.
Okay, so the Anesthesia Patient Safety Foundation was put together by Dr. Ellison C. Pierce, or Jeep was his nickname. And he was the ASA president at the time in 1984. And he and Dr. Jeff Cooper, who is a PhD from MGH up in Boston, put this group together, talked the ASA into supporting and sponsoring it. And it really led to dramatic improvements in patient safety. At the same time, there were technologic improvements, introduction of pulse oximetry, end-tidal CO2 gas monitoring. The standards of monitoring that came out of Boston were adopted by the ASA. All those things were coming to a head about the same time, but APSF was a group that could pull that together, that could educate people about it, and that could then start to focus research on certain areas where there were gaps in knowledge. And we've continued that now for 34 years. Over the time, we've targeted research at key priority areas. We've given out over $13 million of awards and have led to a number of successes. So as an example, if you look at different priorities that we've had over the years, one of them would be perioperative neuropathies. And if you go back to 1995, 1996, almost every anesthesia provider in the United States was sued at some point because some patient developed an ulnar neuropathy. And it was just assumed that it was a problem that occurred intraoperatively. APSF sponsored research that showed that wasn't the case. Matter of fact, most of these occur postoperatively, and triggered a series of events that changed practice. So in the last 20 years, there's been an 85% reduction in ulnar neuropathy. Simulation. We wouldn't have simulation the way we have it now in anesthesia had it not been for a lot of the early studies and support provided by APSF to some of the leading centers such as Harvard, Stanford, University of Florida, etc. Patient warming. Dr. Dan Sessler, who really led a lot of the basic knowledge about postoperative hypothermia and the detrimental side effects of that, and then the development of things like bear hugger warming and other warming mechanisms, Dr. Scott Augustine and others that developed all those, really came from early funding of research from APSF. So those are some examples of what we've been able to do, not just alone, but going back to our professional societies, the ASA, the American Association of Nurse Anesthetists, etc., to promulgate new standards or practice guidelines that have helped do that. And then when it was appropriate, with the American College of Surgeons or American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons or neurologic surgeons, whatever it took to push improve patient safety forward.
And did you have a global agenda as well? Because that's, we're being reminded the whole time that these numbers we quote are very much in a well-resourced world.
Yeah. Yes, we do. And in fact, it's nice you asked that because up until about 3 or 4 years ago, APSF and actually to some degree ASA were pretty U.S. and maybe even Canada focused, but North American focused. And that's changed dramatically. So the last 3 years, the Anesthesia Patient Safety Foundation newsletter, which is the most widely circulated and read publication.
Over 100,000, is that right?
Well, we have over 125,000 people that get hard copies of it.
Okay.
But just last week, I learned that in the last 12-month period, our online editions, which are done in 6 different languages, Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, Portuguese, French, and English, soon to add Arabic, which we think will reach about 85% of all the anesthesia professionals in the world in a language you understand. We surpassed 460,000 views on our newsletter.
Oh, wonderful.
And from 217 countries, which, according to the World Health Organization, is all of them.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, I think that's all of them.
We even got Tonga. And I had an anesthesiologist write me from Antarctica. So we covered all 7 continents.
Oh, wow, there we go.
And every country.
Yeah, they were well done.
Cheers
so
on
we're
that.
really proud of it. We work with these folks because not everything we have traditionally put in our newsletter applies around the world.
Yeah, of course.
So what we've done is we work with national societies, the Japanese Society, for example, or the Colombian Society, and they help us select which articles are applicable to them, and then we translate them appropriately, and we get those disseminated, so we're really proud of that. The other thing we've done is patient safety training, perioperative patient safety training is not integrated into most training programs. So working with the Patient Safety Movement Foundation, we now have a grant where we have individuals that will take an existing and really well done patient safety curriculum. They're going to modify it to be perioperative patient safety curriculum.
Gotcha.
And once we test that and validate it, we're going to then put out other grants to modify it further for use in low and middle income countries around the world.
Fantastic.
So that's one thing. The other thing is APSF just recently, we're working with the World Federation of Societies of Anesthesiologists. That's all the national societies under an umbrella. And we are now supporting research that they're doing. They have 50 fellowships a year where they take people from low-income countries and send them off to do fellowship training. For example, one country may never have anyone that's been trained really in depth in pediatric anesthesia or regional anesthesia or obstetric anesthesia. So they send them off to different countries to be trained in those areas. But there's variability in the quality of those training programs. So we're providing them funds to study those programs to find out what is the best way to optimize the training that's done in those and help improve those fellowships. So we're reaching as far as we can now internationally, and we're going to continue to do that.
So there's a World Congress coming up next year. Will you have a presence at that? There's every 4 years there's a World Congress. The next
absolutely.
one.
Matter of fact, I think it's going to be every 2 years, as I recall.
Oh, is that what they're going
I believe I saw that. But
they're going to change that to every 2 years?
Well, it may happen.
Interesting.
I've heard rumors about that throughout this meeting.
You heard it here first.
We have an Anesthesia Patient Safety Foundation panel at that meeting, and it's going to talk about handoffs. So the transitions of care that occur and the errors that are made because of miscommunication or poor communication. And so we think it's very essential that we continue to take our top priorities and we disseminate information about them.
And the World Congress is in Prague.
In Prague.
Beautiful, beautiful city. Very accessible. Yeah. Very, very. So everyone listening, get to Prague. If you haven't been to World Congress, it's a very special gathering of people.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It's unique. And you get to meet colleagues from all over the world. It's a spectacular opportunity. If I could just mention those patient safety priorities I mentioned.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Just ask you about.
So we have a dozen of them right now, and we revolve those every year. We review that. So basically, we have an Anesthesia Patient Safety Foundation family, in quotation marks, family of individuals, and these would be the folks that volunteer their time and efforts on behalf of patient safety and the APSF. So they're committee members, they're advisory council members, they're our board of directors, and we go through a very extensive process to look at all the different types of patient safety problems there are. And it's a computerized process, and we go through and we come up with the top 12. And it's a lot of fun. And we do that, and then we come up with the top 12, and then we dedicate a lot of our resources to those top 12. So the deteriorating patient and the issues of rescuing them if they falter, or the real concern is dead in bed with opioid use, or just a failure to rescue. So we just had a consensus conference. We, once a year, have a consensus conference. We bring in 130 individuals from around the world that bring all different perspectives. That includes patient advocates and others. We bring them all in together to talk about how do you solve this problem. We come up with specific recommendations, and then we spend the next 2 or 3 years following those recommendations to try to get them implemented. And implementation is often difficult, but that's why we have to work at it. And so we put an increasing amount of our resources now into not only come up with good recommendations, but with the implementation of those recommendations, either through professional societies, through guidelines that are produced, through regulatory bodies such as the Joint Commission or the FDA. We'll take whatever route it takes to get these things done because it makes sense from a patient safety standpoint.
Yeah, it sounds really, truly multidisciplinary too.
Yes, it is.
Do you have nurses and different types of organizations, and it spans all the specialties, not just anesthesia, right?
That's right. So in their wisdom in 1985, when the ASA put this together, they said half the directors are going to be appointed by ASA. The other half are going to be individuals who aren't anesthesiologists, but who bring to the table the diversity of perspectives we need. Industry. We have the individuals from the American Association of Nurse Anesthetists, from American Academy of Anesthesiologist Assistants, from the American College of Surgeons, from the Association of Operating Room Nurses. The American Society of Peri-Anesthetic Nurses. And we have medical legal people, The Joint Commission is there. So we bring all these people together to bring a diversity of ideas and perspectives on how you improve patient care. Yeah. And it's great. It's apolitical. It's a wonderful organization.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Where do we find, I know where to find it, but to tell everyone else where we find the APSF.
We have a lot of listeners who are non-physicians, and it'd be great for them to know, too.
So it's easy. You can either just type into any search engine, or any approach, you Google, whatever, Anesthesia Patient Safety Foundation, or we abbreviate that, APSF.org.
Okay.
It's that simple.
And the research that you're supporting, can you find what's going on that website?
Oh, absolutely. So we advertise all the grant opportunities, and particularly those that we do with others. We do a lot of collaborative grants. So Foundation for Anesthesia Education and Research, we have collaborative grants. Patient Safety Movement Foundation, collaborative grants. World Federation, collaborative grants. Again, because we all want to work together. It's not one single group that advances patient safety. It's everybody.
Yeah, and on the same vein as Henry here, do you have special programs for residency residents and trainees?
Well, the unique things we're working on, I mentioned the patient safety curriculum will be one of those. We don't have anything unique for them, except a lot of social media.
Yes,
that's how we're reaching
absolutely.
them. And having recently had a couple sons and daughter-in-laws go through the residency program in anesthesia, I get their feedback on what we need, and it's often pretty harsh to me. But you're allowed to do that when it's your kids.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's your kiddos.
And it's really good. So we use a lot of social media to gather input from particularly young trainees around the world. So
and you have some videos and podcasts and things like that have gone out through APSF, and you can find those on the website as well.
Absolutely,
correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so lots of good information.
So for example, fire safety. I think in 2012 we addressed that particular issue because we were having over 1,000 fires in the United States in the operating room, and they're devastating.
Absolutely.
You can imagine the problems that come with that, particularly the head and neck area. And we've been able to work with a variety of groups, including regulatory bodies, standard setting bodies, etc. And through a video we produced, we know that over 500,000 healthcare providers have seen that video and participated in learning about operating room fires. We've actually changed it now so that I think the last data I heard, about 80% of the United States operating rooms, in accredited operating rooms, go through a preoperative pause, and fire hazard is a ranking that's put in there. And anyhow, we've seen over a 50% reduction in the last 6 years.
Wow.
So we're pretty happy about that. We'd like to see another 50% and then another 50%.
Zero. That would be great.
Well, we want is zero. That's right.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Mark, and just finally, when we part here, can you just give us one thing that you're most excited about that you see where the APSF is going in the future?
Sure. I love that APSF is multidisciplinary, bringing perspectives from industry, from nursing, from physicians, from every organization, and again, the regulatory bodies. And we're a convener. We pull people together. And we're now expanding that internationally. And I'm really proud of what that's done the last 3 years and where we can take that further. Because there's no reason that we shouldn't all share ideas around the globe, because we all face similar issues. We face some specific ones too. And in those cases, we need to address those. But we all have general patient safety things that we can do to improve patient care worldwide.
Yeah, fantastic.
Excellent.
Well, thank you so much again for sitting down and taking the time. I know you're a busy man, very much so, but congratulations again on your award. It sounds like the career that you've had, and just within the society, you've done so much for the society and our patients.
And
so
we'll see you in Prague, if not before.
Yeah, absolutely. Great.
Well,
Great.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, thanks to our listeners on TopMedTalk. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, TopMedTalk.com. We'll send you some instructions on how to get our app or how to sign up on your favorite podcatcher where you can receive daily podcasts, much like this conversation that we just had with Mark here today. So thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you the next time. Cheers.
TopMedTalk.
Just a quick reminder, subscribe to TopMedTalk. We're a daily source of news and conversation focused on perioperative care. We bring you all the latest talk from all the major conferences in the perioperative space. We can also be found on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and we now have a free mailing list with special offers and additional goodies for subscribers. Go check us out at TopMedTalk.com. That's www.topmedtalk.com.